Welcome to today's episode of the Insurance, Life, and Everything in Between podcast. My name is Adam Brsan.
And I'm Chris Smith.
If you've yet to do so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. And if you love this podcast, don't forget to share it with a friend or colleague. We greatly appreciate your help and support.
Alrighty, so it is another summer edition of our podcast. I know it's been tough to keep videos up, keep the content going, but we're keeping the quality up. We're having the kind of conversations that most folks aren't willing to have. We're having the kind of transparency that most folks aren't willing to share. And today, Adam, we're going to discuss some red flags when folks are out there looking to start with an agency, change to an agency, ask for a transfer, like chase greener grass, like so quality concerning red flags that people might want to look out for. How's that sound?
Sounds good. I think it's something that could definitely help a lot of people that are concerned about building an agency and, hear all of the nightmares or stories about roll up debt and people getting hit with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that can be prevented. So, yeah, I think it's a good topic.
Now, we're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it sweet. We're going to keep it right at around 20 minutes today. So if you stay tuned to the end of the video, you might miss something if you don't watch the whole thing. So keep it short. We're not going long. It's not an hour. It's not an hour and a half. It's not one of our crossover specials like where we just go full length into it. This is going to be short and sweet. So stay with us to the end of the video. Adam, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, many different things people should be afraid of. But the first one that I wrote down, I think is something that we specialize in, and it's something that we've already done over an hour and 40 minutes of content on today. And it's real experience-based training versus flashy webinars and fluff. I think agents and agencies and people looking to make a change or get started in the business need to be careful about working with folks that are going to provide experience-based training or simply fluff out there in the industry. What do you think?
I think that there's so much of that where, they always show the shiny new cars and just all this stuff that doesn't matter. But it's what they use to attract people that maybe are young and gullible. And I think it's a false advertisement really for the business when it comes back to the fact that you can do really well in this business, but it takes hard work, and it's not like all of this is just going to happen overnight. So I think what that does, it brings in a lot of these brand new agents just getting licensed. They see all these dollar signs and they think that they're going to make all this money overnight, and then that doesn't seem to happen right away. And then a lot of them are just in and out of the business. They're in and out of the business. And then it's like, if nobody else is there to keep up with that business, that's what tends to happen, where people end up dealing with chargebacks and roll up debts because the person that wrote the business isn't even here anymore to conserve it.
Yeah, I think part of the issue when we're talking about experience-based training versus just complete dream selling or unrealistic expectations is setting people up properly for success. Like when someone onboards with us, I had a conversation recently with somebody. I said, here's the program, here's the process, here's the system. Take it or leave, like in a nice way, because I just don't want to set them up for failure. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to take away from others' time. Like, here's the process, here's the program, here's the system. Here's what's going to work. If you choose not to work this system, then I guess maybe operate in the periphery as a broker, but you're just wasting your time. So just like any business, I think when you go and you partner with an organization, they should present to you how to drive the car. What do the wheels look like? How is this going to work so that you can actually get where you're trying to go?
Yeah, realistic expectations of really what could be. That's something I think we're pretty good at, is kind of putting a plan together, showing people what it's going to take to be successful. And like we always say, those that succeed are the ones that are kind of buying in and doing everything that they need to do. Those that tend to fail are those that kind of fall a little bit short when it comes to ordering leads on a regular basis. Maybe taking shortcuts, maybe it's a work ethic thing, but just having those realistic expectations, I think, from the start, I think is important. I mean, I've always just tried to be straightforward with people. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm gonna tell them like it is, and I'm gonna explain what it's going to take to be successful and the work that's going to take to do it. I wish I could say this was an easy career. It really isn't. You got to be willing to put the time in, and you got to be able to. You got to have thick skin. I mean, you got to be able to handle rejection and know that just the more you get rejected, you're just getting that much closer to the next person that's going to let you in and turn things around for you for the day.
The next one I wrote down is we try to keep it right at around 20 minutes today as we discuss agency red flags, like places you should be wary of, worried about, not partner with. Maybe if you're in this situation, find your way out of this situation. Is an overemphasis in recruiting over sales skills, business management techniques, mindset training. I think it's so important until somebody's gotten their footing in the business to be focused on their business instead of replicating themselves. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before. I know you've shared stories before of organizations you chose not to partner with because they were so recruit focused. There wasn't even any time to teach how to actually sell or distribute the product.
Yeah, I know we actually talked a little bit about this last Friday with Nick. I mentioned that how there's a lot of groups that right away when new people are coming on, it's like, okay, well, as far as part of your training, first step is to come up with a list of people that that you can go sell to, and then come up with another list that we can market to that would like to take advantage of this same opportunity. And that is we talk about like the multi-level marketing sort of thing, the MLMs out there. Like I kind of get it because they do want to grow and build and bring people in, but well, from a safety standpoint, I think a brand new agent has no business putting agents under them. They have to be established. They have to build up some income and some renewals and just have a little bit of stability before taking on that risk of bringing on new people. And I've even had new agents in the past where right away they want to bring on agents. And I tell them, how about you bring them over to here? We'll work with them, we'll train them. And then as soon as you're ready, and I feel like you're ready, well, then we'll move them over to you. And I'll explain to them the reasoning why that it's really not safe to have agents under you when you're first getting going in the business. Because it is a bit of a risk. You got to know what you're doing, and it's hard to train someone when you're still trying to learn it yourself. So,
Yeah,
but I think that's a good way to do it. Come on, bring them to us. We'll work with them as soon as you're ready. We'll bring them over to you, and we're doing that to protect you.
yeah, I don't think people realize the downside because the upside sounds so cool. Like, all right, my friend Johnny wrote a policy. I wrote a policy. Now I'm both making money. But when Johnny's policy charges back and that chargeback eats up your advance, you wrote a piece of business that you didn't get paid for. Are you really able to embrace that? Like, could you afford to work all week and not make a penny from it because of chargebacks, because of training, because of babysitting? Like, there's so much that goes involved into that point. Here's what I wrote down. I believe, and I don't have the facts right here to show it to you, but I don't think you make any profit in building until you have 10 full-time agents, self-sufficient producers that are out there writing business. I think anything under that, you're almost losing. I mean, you have to build to get to that point, but people are thinking they're going to be millionaires and out of the field because they brought two people onto their agency, and it's just not realistic.
Well, no, but I think another part of it too is those that recruit for the masses, and they're not really putting forth the same sort of training or effort that they would put towards like if they were growing at like a I don't know at like a slower level, where just kind of like the whole let's recruit everybody we can, and those that work out, those that don't. Um, it's much harder to manage business that way, in my opinion, when you got a whole bunch of people and you're not as like like we say like our group in that we talk with most of our guys on a regular basis, but when you have 1,000 agents under you, it's hard to do that, and then you don't know where the business is coming from. You don't know if it's a legit business. Sometimes it's the carriers that kind of find those sort of things and bring them to our attention. But sometimes by the time the carrier's bringing it to our attention, it's too late. And there's already a lot of stuff in the works that more than likely can end up falling off and could end up really hurting us. So I don't know. I've always been more about, let's grow one agent at a time, do what we can to help them, support them. I would rather see 10 agents each doing, at least 10,000 or more in premium every month than bringing on 100 agents every month and each one of them just writing one app because they're not getting the sort of support that they need.
Yeah, I wrote down here something that they should look for or should look to see if exists is engaged leadership. Like people that are going to be showing you the way, teaching you the way, providing you the system. It may not be the very top of the hierarchy, but are you going to be able to engage with somebody in a leadership role that's going to answer your text and know your and like be engaged with you? Like let's keep it simple. I had a guy reach out in the industry who had a question for me, and I like him, I respect him, I trust him, but he chooses not to do business with me. So I'm going to shoot it to him straight. I'm like, ask your upline. Like, it's not my responsibility to answer this question for you because you've chosen not to partner with me. If you did, and I was still awake, I would answer this question for you. But there's only so many hours in a day and time in your existence to put toward people. So are you going to choose to partner with engaged leaders or leadership? Or are you going to have to, maybe you don't need anything from anybody, and that's a whole different kind of personal problem. But I think it's important to be working with people that are working just as hard as you, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing, with me and you, Chris. I mean, heck, we're still out in the field. We're out writing business. I mean, we're staying in the loop with things. Makes it a lot easier to work with agents when you're kind of right in the middle of it. I think a lot of groups, heck, some of the higher ups, they haven't sold a policy in 10, 15 years. So, how can you stay up to date on all of the internal stuff when it comes to writing business, when it comes to the different e-apps, when it comes to changes in underwriting with different carriers and rates and all that other stuff? It's a lot easier when you're right in the middle of it with agents than like I said, than when you're just sitting there bringing people on, and the people you're bringing on know more about the different carriers than you do because you haven't sold anything in forever. So yeah, I think it's great to have leadership that knows what they're doing and kind of stays on top of things with the current trends in the industry.
Yeah, some of the questions I get from folks in the field that are in homes trying to write business to pay bills, to keep up with their life, that I wouldn't be able to answer if I hadn't done it myself. Like I just wouldn't know the answer to that question if I hadn't just done that the week prior in the field. So experienced, engaged leadership. Maybe it's not the guy at the top, but it's somebody doing the business that's there to support people is so important. What do you think about as a warning sign, agencies or agents or uplines that don't teach a vision past one door, $1, one lead? Like it's so easy to get wrapped up in that mindset in the early phase of your career. But what if you're working with someone that doesn't even think ahead or doesn't think 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, next year ahead? What do you think that ends? How do you feel about that?
I think I don't know. It's kind of small-minded thinking. You're not treating this like a career. You're just treating it like a job that it's just what you're doing to get by for now. Uh, there's so much opportunity in this business. You can make a heck of a lot of money, but yeah, it's not. I think the hardest part of the business is really the first year when you're still kind of getting established. You don't have renewals set in. Uh, you're pretty much just living off of the commissions from when you're currently writing business. Uh, you got to focus more on the future. Focus on the keeping up with the business, not letting business fall off. Just anything that you can do to kind of start to build up those renewals. And but yeah, I think so many people are just so small minded. They're looking for that quick dollar. They're just looking for right now. And well, sometimes that can lead to just in and out of the business as well if they don't see the vision of really what could be and putting a plan together. I think setting goals, knowing where your day and what your year is going to look like and what your plans are for the future. It really matters. Or you're just going to get stuck. You're just going to get stuck doing the same thing day in and day out, and nothing's really going to ever change.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to get into a comfort zone in this business where, while that's okay, that might be your default point. You have to get pushed out of it into the next level of growth at some point. You figure out how to give the presentation. You can afford to spend 780 a week on leads. You understand the value of appointment setting. You know how to knock a door, set an appointment, save a policy, all the basics. Then what? Then what? Or you're going to get stuck writing 3 to 5K a week for the next 30 years of your life. And you're going to look back on the other side of the table because now you're the client and you never prepared for the future. Like, what happens when you've exited survival mode and now it's time to thrive, time to form an LLC, time to hire a tax accountant, time to hire staff? Like that, I don't think there's enough of that ever taught in this business.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, how many agents are taught to set money aside for lead, or not for leads, but for taxes? I mean, heck, a 1099 uh, opportunity. If you're not setting money aside, you can get hit hard at tax time. All it took me was one time to really get hit hard on my taxes, where maybe I didn't set enough money aside to realize, man, I gotta do better at this. It's no fun when you gotta get set up on a payment plan with the IRS because you weren't responsible with your taxes. And that was 1 year for me. I ended up owing a heck of a lot more than what I had anticipated, and had to get on a payment plan. And then you're writing business to pay back taxes, which is no fun either. So
Yeah.
it's important to be responsible with your money. Yeah, you got to invest in your business, but you also got to set money aside for taxes.
I also think in our final 4 or so minutes here, there are a lot of ways to be successful, a lot of ways to win, a lot of ways people can make money. I think winners are going to win no matter where they go. They just might make more money elsewhere. I think losers are going to lose no matter where they go. They just weren't a fit for entrepreneurship. But I think some of the things that really rub me the wrong way, because I know these kind of organizations exist, is where they start people off in really, really low commission levels. And they make them pay full price for leads, and they resell their leads, and they don't supply a vision for what happens next. And it's just a recipe for struggle. And I struggled that way and I made it past that point. But what are your thoughts on these organizations that not only start people really, really low, but also make them pay full price as if they were at street level commission?
Well, kind of like what you said there. I mean, I don't know if it's intentional or not. Sometimes I feel like it's almost looking at it from the outside, like they're being set up to fail. When you do the math on a low comp with and the high cost of leads, I mean, how can you get ahead even on a 70 or 80% contract if you're paying $40 a lead? I mean, you do the math on it, it's like, I mean, you got to write a lot of business every week to come out ahead. So yeah, that's one thing. I mean, I would understand if there was some sort of like lead discount or even free leads on a lower comp, where like the marketing and everything is handled for the agent. That's one thing, because then there's zero risk to the agent either. All they can, they're always going to be in the positive. But for someone that, coming into the business and paying $40 a lead on a 70 or 80% comp or even lower,
Mhm.
there's no way you're going to last in the business. I mean, you just do the math yourself and figure
The
it
math
out. I
doesn't
mean, it's
math
just,
anymore.
yeah, it's not going to add up. It really doesn't.
When we started, a 70 and a $20 lead was a different game. And 20 leads would get you through the week. Now it's more like the leads are twice the price. You probably need 25% more leads. And you either need to start on a career track where your agency is going to cover that cost for you. Or if you're on street level, you're paying for your leads. You have to learn to cross sell. And as your training was this morning, look for business outside of the leads. I think the warning sign that people need to take away from today's podcast is there's got to be a little bit of a bigger vision. If the person you're sitting in front of that's recruiting you hasn't thought ahead, hasn't even gotten ahead, hasn't even been in the business a few years to have a vision of what that looks like, that might be something to be worried about too, right? Like if they haven't been around long enough to live some of these experiences for you, you might need to work with somebody else.
For sure. Yeah. Kind of getting back at what you were saying too, another thing I think about, like some of these organizations, they even have a maximum advance per household. Like I've seen where you could write 3 or 4 applications in one home, and the maximum that the carrier will advance you is $800. So like you could write 3 or 4 thousand in one house, and the max they're going to advance you in that household is $800. I mean, just right there. I mean, and then, they might finance you the leads, then they're taking half of your money. So then you end up making $400 in one home. It's just, I don't
You
know
can't make it
how
that way.
agents can get ahead in those sort of scenarios. There's, maybe it's worked for some, but in the end, I think kind of like what we were talking about earlier, it's almost like small minded thinking when people are looking at the opportunity. They see all these other people that are making a lot of money, but then they don't do their own research and they don't kind of dig a little bit deeper and do their own math and try to figure out, what's it actually going to take to make the sort of money I want to make. But then again, too, like what you said earlier, too, Chris, so much of this business, too, uh, you see people hopping around from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and then they're back to the
Oh
first
man.
place, and then they're moving on to the second place again. It's like, to me, that's more of like a me problem. It doesn't matter what the comp is. It doesn't matter how much they're paying for leads. I mean, every single system that they've ever been involved in, I guess people are just out to get them. Kind of feel bad for those sort of people, but honestly, I mean, I think self accountability, a good agent's going to be good anywhere they go, regardless of the way that they're set up structurally with comp and lead prices and everything else, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
think Yeah, I think it would be like, and I know the individual you're describing might be a good person, might have a beer with him one day, I don't know. But if you're working with somebody who's in a leadership role that hasn't had their feet on the ground in one spot longer than, 6 months, that's a problem. Like imagine if your dad was getting married every 6 months to somebody new and you moved out and you moved in, you moved out, you moved in every 6 months, it was someone new, then you're back to where you started. Like how could a human develop in that type of environment? So if you're choosing to partner with somebody who's now partnering again with someone else, like at some point that level of instability hurts you as the agent below them in your potential growth. We might make strategic changes in lead vendors or CRMs or carrier adjustments because the market shifts, but the core focus of what we do isn't going to change. We might teach agents Medicare when they're ready to learn Medicare. We might help them manage an annuity when they stumble into an annuity. But the core concept isn't going to be uprooted, thrown in the trash, and replanted every 6 months. That's just irresponsible leadership, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean like I said, I mean, I've made 3 moves in 21 years, and the first 2 companies were, I guess you could say, pretty much captive or close to it. So I mean, I'm a pretty loyal person. I'm not one that's gonna hop around from one place to the next to the next. Because I know at the end of the day, it's all about what I do. It's
Mhm.
all about what I do, and I can create my own wealth in any system that I desire, as long as I put the time in and I look out for my people and do everything that I can to help them succeed. So yeah, if I'm failing, I'm never gonna say, oh, it's because of the leads, oh, it's because of this, and oh boy, they're just trying to screw me over. um I don't think people ever are out there really intentionally trying to screw people over. um
Mhm.
but some people just kind of have that mindset that anywhere they go, they're just playing victim. So um, but anyways, yeah, I think just that would be a red flag. Look out for people like that too. If you go on somebody's LinkedIn profile and you see that they've been with one agency for 6 months, then another one for 4 months, and then another one for 8 months, and like they have a list of like 6, 8 different places that they've been, like I would feel like that person has accountability issues.
Yeah, that's their choice and that's their life to live, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't work with somebody that can't provide that level of stability that I would need as a new agent or a struggling agent or restart any of those things. Like that's a leadership issue that they have with themselves that they have to come to Jesus about or whoever they pray to. Adam, I appreciate you being with us together today on this mini, maybe not mini, but like middle of the road length episode. We're going to keep coming up with content throughout the course of the summer, relevant, useful, semi challenging because nobody wants to hear about you problems, but together we're going to kind of shed light on stuff people don't want to talk about online. Thanks for being here.
And this concludes another episode of the Insurance, Life, and Everything in Between podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend or colleague, and if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please leave those too. Any input is greatly appreciated. Thank you.